Are you single, alone, want to find a partner? Well, have I got the show for you.
8 ordinary men. Each has conquered some of the most difficult challenges of manhood. Meet the world's most successful pickup artist. A man who goes by only one name.
Mystery.
Born Eric von Markovic, Mystery was the ultimate geek, rejected by hundreds of beautiful women.
Girls didn't even know I was alive.
Mystery has recruited 2 former students, J-Dog and Matador, to be his wingmen as he faces his biggest challenge yet. Is there a future master among them?
So you think this game is tough, don't you?
Find out on The Pickup Artist.
In 2007, VH1 premiered the show The Pickup Artist, starring Eric von Markovic, aka Mystery. And with his wingmen Matador and J-Dog, they sought out to find the next master pickup artist. Welcome back, fellow millionaires. Now, I watched the show when I was 12. And even at that time, I viewed this as strictly entertainment. I was not learning from this show. At the same time, I've seen a lot of people react to the show King of the Nerds, which is another show I watched from around that time. As someone who grew up a little nerdy myself, these 2 shows were polar opposites. One was like, one of you will be the king. The other one is like, are you trying to get girls? So I thought I would do a video on The Pickup Artist, since I think there are plenty of good videos on King of the Nerds. But if you want me to talk about that one too, let me know. Now, just a quick disclaimer before we get on. There are things in the show that are very, unfortunately, of its time, and would obviously probably not be okay now. I don't go to clubs, so I don't really know, but I genuinely feel like a lot of this stuff is just probably not very PC. And there's also a lot of cringe in the show. So that's just a small disclaimer before we get on. Now, finding episodes for the show were not easy. I had to scour the internet. Season 1 is not easy to find. I could find season 2, but not season 1. And we'll talk about why that might be later. At the time of writing this, I had only found 3. And then with the help of my brother, I found 3 more later on. So I will be talking about those first 3 today. And if you want me to talk about the other 3, we can. But I will be giving spoilers in this one as well. So we'll see. Episode 1 starts like any competition show. It's just introductions. First, of course, we have Mystery. And his co-host J-Dog and Matador. I will say Matador, kind of a sick name, not gonna lie. I can't hold him on that one. That one is kind of sick. J-Dog, on the other hand, does remind me of J-Rock from Trailer Park Boys, so can never take that name seriously. Also, Matador, kind of conventionally attractive, so I don't know, what he looked like when he was a student, but I don't know how much help he really needed from Mystery. Maybe it was just a confidence thing. Who knows? J-Dog kind of looks funny, but for the time, maybe not actually. Considering a lot of singers look like this. Then we have the students/competitors. First, we have Joe D, 25, always ends up in the friend zone. Pradeep is a 22-year-old from Boston that doesn't know when to talk to women or how to stop. Also, he's uncircumcised.
I my pants and that I'm uncircumcised.
Don't know why that needed to be put there. Steven, aka Spoon, is 27 and has a hard time talking to women. Alvaro's 23, he's from Miami, and he's never had a girlfriend. He's a boxer, and he calls himself good looking, but he just can't talk to women. I will say Alvaro looked very Jersey Shore to me, and Jersey Shore did have a Miami season. So, however, this came out before Jersey Shore. I believe Jersey Shore premiered 2008. So next we have Fred, and Fred is 45 and calls himself the 40-year-old virgin plus 5. And he just struggles with seeing opportunities. I do end up feeling very bad for Fred throughout these episodes, so. And you might also. Up next, we got Scott, and he's 26. He stutters around women and he panics. And also, side note, obviously I'm not a licensed in any way to say this, but some of them do probably suffer from severe social anxiety or could possibly be neurodivergent. And obviously I'm not a professional, so I can't say whether they do or don't, but makes you sympathize a little bit more maybe. How hard it can be for some people to talk to other people. Sometimes it's not about talking to women, but talking to people in general. Back to our contestants though. Joe W, 24, and women think he's gay, and he's also intimidated by women. And finally, we have Brady. He is a 25-year-old photographer from Indiana. Now, Brady, much like Alvaro, is suspiciously not that nerdy looking. All the contestants then meet Mystery. And honestly, at first, it seems like most of them don't know who Mystery is or what they're doing, to be honest, because some of them react like they've never ever seen him in their entire lives or heard of him. At this point, I'm sure a lot of people didn't know who Mystery was. This is also where we're formally introduced to Matador and J-Dog. They are Mystery's former students, now master pickup artists just like himself. And I will say before we deep dive into the rest of this episode and the rest of the other episodes, Mystery and his team sometimes are actually very empathetic towards the guys. Honestly, like kind of surprising, like watching back now, I'm like, I would have thought they would be a little bit more aggressive maybe in their tone, or a little bit more cold, but they tend to listen a lot. So in a way that kind of makes me feel like maybe they're not lying. Maybe they were in those positions and are now who they are. So I don't know. The students also find out that the winner will be walking out with $50,000 and then travel with Mystery to teach others around the globe on how to pick up women or find your partner. Now, I question that, because is a few weeks really enough for someone to become a master pickup artist and then travel with you to teach other people? Like, I think the show is enough time for the winner and some of the other guys to establish themselves as being able to even talk to other people. But to then be like, well, you won, so now you're gonna go teach other people, kind of crazy, no? And I mean, this whole thing is kind of crazy, so I don't even know why I'm justifying it or trying to understand it. If you want someone teaching something, wouldn't you want them to have a lot of experience in it, not they just learned it, now they're teaching it? I don't know. Now we get to what ends up becoming the hard watch of most of these episodes, and that is when all the contestants get thrown into a club to gauge their current skills. And obviously it's episode 1, so it is a train wreck. And also, just gonna say this, from this point on, Pradeep becomes very, very unlikable for me.
I think I might have more success tonight because I'm talkative and funny and humorous. I'd like to meet somebody of a moderately Jewish appearance. Nice skin, shapely, brunette. We'd have beautiful children. They'd look like white people with tans all year round. It would be a wonderful thing.
He comes with this aura of like how he thinks he's gonna be better than everyone, but no one this night does really well at all.
Technique I have decided to use is going up to men, and there's a good reason for this. I'm really afraid of talking to women.
Pradeep goes and talks to a guy, which, hey, nothing wrong. Brady rambles to a girl. Scott walks around like Nosferatu, kinda, which, hey man, we all do that, right? I think, I don't know. Fred does one of the craziest things of the night. He actually talks to a girl, talks about, hey, where you from, blah, blah, blah. When she brings up that she's from New Orleans, Fred, for some reason, thinks it's a good idea to ask her,
how is your family doing, Katrina?
What? My jaw dropped. And I was watching this episode with my brother, and we were both gagged. Why would you ask that, Fred? And the whole night pretty much goes bad, but hey, it's not their fault. They're there to learn. It's their first night, and this was really just to gauge where they're at. Now, after this train wreck, Mystery and his boys go out and they show them how it's done. Obviously, since they're the host of the show, they kill it. No surprise there. And again, I don't know if it's fake, but a lot of what they do works. Now, Again, I'm not a picking up people at clubs person. I've been in a relationship for almost a decade, okay? And before that, I was not a clubbing person to meet people. So I don't know how things were back then. I'm also not old enough to know what it was like back then. So maybe in 2007, this is how you picked up people in a club. I don't know. Also, Mystery uses a line that low-key made me cringe so hard because he hits a girl with a "milady" line.
None of that now, young lady.
Now with episode 1 over, obviously no one gets eliminated, but we did learn a little bit about everyone and kind of what the format of the show will be, right? So episode 2. Now episode 2 is where we really dive into what the show will be. It starts with Spoon having painted his nails. And I think partially it's because he saw Mystery, Matador, and J-Dog and kind of their style and thought, if I do a little style change, it might help my confidence, which, hey, it could. You never know. It actually does help some people. I tell people all the time, if you look good, and I mean this, look good to yourself, you feel good and you might actually gain some confidence. So, you know, no hate there. Plus, painting nails actually was kind of sick. I'm not gonna lie. In this episode, we also learn what peacock theory is. Now, Mystery describes it in more...
I want to talk a little bit about peacock theory. Have you noticed that you are more drawn to women who convey sexuality? They show off their cleavage, right? They wear shorter skirts. Well, we can't wear shorter skirts, but we can wear tighter pants.
When men and women, or just when people in general, do certain things in order to be flashy to attract others, right? They use a more crude description, but that's what I'm gonna say. What does that mean? That's right, we get a makeover montage. Now during this scene, we also get a clip of Jody basically, in a way, paying homage to the 40-year-old version, to the scene where Steve Carell gets his chest waxed. Now, I don't know if they made him do this in order to pay homage to that, or if it was his idea thinking it would be funny. Part of me also thought, if they did pitch it, did they pitch it to Fred first? That maybe he was reluctant or perhaps too on the nose. Now, after the montage, they go and present their makeovers to Mystery and the gang. And they're brutal. Probably the most brutal, at least in the episode I see, that they get to the guys at all. It is, they straight up tell some of them that they did awful.
Sesame Street. That's what I get a sense of. I can see a 12-year-old wearing what you're wearing.
Also, side note, Joe W gets his ears gauged. Now, for those of you who don't know what a gauge is, basically it's when you stretch out your earlobes, right? You've seen people with like big gauges. I always wanted that when I was younger. I still do. It's kind of cool, to be honest. But he straight up gets chunks removed from his earlobes.
Did you actually get your ears pierced today?
I have my ears gauged. They took a chunk of my flesh out for you guys.
No way.
I now have 6 gauge holes in my ears. You can see through them.
Which I think is, hey man, that's kind of metal, not gonna lie. But also kind of impulsive, I don't know, insane. Spoon ends up winning this challenge because he did a good makeover. And again, I think it was foreshadowed in the beginning with him painting his nails that maybe he saw, hey, I know what I need to, how I need to look in order to perform well. With Spoon winning the challenge, he gets to practice talking to a woman. Yes, Mystery apparently does have female friends, and one has volunteered to practice with Spoon. Just talking, obviously. Now, she does mention briefly that at first she was worried that a lot of what Mystery and his friends did was very misogynistic, just doing it to kind of get laid. But that she spoke with him more in detail and that really it was more of a way to get certain men that need help to be more confident in talking to women or talking to people in an effort for them to find their life partner and not just get laid. So he might be telling the truth. I mean, listen, Mystery does go on to also have literally like this, the same year this came out, have a child, and he has 3 kids now. So maybe he is telling the truth. Maybe it is a way for them to just find their partner. I don't know if a club is where you go to do that, but you know, Spoon's time with Tara actually goes great, surprisingly. It starts off pretty bad where he's really nervous and scared. But once he gets comfortable with her, he actually just like, he's joking around, kind of letting loose. And even she says it that like, hey, Spoon's doing great. And to be honest, it made me hopeful that Spoon would actually transform. Now, I watched the show so long ago, obviously, that I don't remember most of it. I briefly remember the cast and briefly remembered some of the challenges, but for some reason I couldn't remember like who gets eliminated, who won. Like that was out of my mind completely. So I genuinely thought Spoon would do great that night. So now it's club night and you think Spoon's gonna do great. Well, let's see what happens. Scott immediately books it to the first person he sees, fails. Pretty much all do bad again. Pradeep comes into it with this weird attitude of like, I'm just gonna do whatever I want.
I just want to do it impromptu because I'm much better that way. And so I don't have everything memorized, and I'm comfortable with that.
And you know, one thing I kind of glossed over is that they do get training from the guys while one of them gets their like advantage from the challenge. And he just decides, nah, screw it, I know better than them. And just does his own thing. And obviously it doesn't work. And they're even like, what is he doing? He just is like an asshole sometimes, you know, kind of like a know-it-all. Now Spoon actually fails. And it breaks my heart because he literally is just anxiety ridden, doesn't know what to do. It's like, he's just scared, and that's fair, you know? It is a very intense situation just being put into a club, especially if you're someone that's never really done that. Especially if you have maybe social anxiety or something like that, right? It's very overwhelming. The sounds, the people, the smells, everything.
I'm like scared. I started thinking about what happened the first time I went into a club. So I kind of panicked and just walked straight out.
You think he's leaving, but that's kind of how they, you know, frame it. But he ends up going to the camera truck where Mystery and all of them are sitting watching. I will say, when it cuts to them talking to him, they are very sweet to him. They are not mean. They're not rude. They're kind of like, they're like, hey man, what's going on? Are you good?
You doing okay, man? What are you feeling right now, man?
You don't have to apologize for it. We all feel it.
Which again makes me think that maybe they really did need help in the past and then became the people they are. Because they don't shame him or are yelling at him or angry with him. And then they try to encourage him to go back, and he goes back, but he doesn't really do much, right? Now, Joe D wins the club challenge and he chooses to save Brady and Alvaro. Now, that's one thing. Whoever wins the club challenge gets to pick 2 people to save from elimination. Also, at this point, Alvaro decides he's actually going to be going by the name Cosmo.
Cosmo with a K. It's money.
Elimination comes up and it's between Spoon and Fred. Spoon just volunteers to leave. I think that's fair. I feel bad for him. I think everyone does. I think the guys do too, that like they couldn't help him. But I do think he just needs help outside of this kind of exposure therapy that it really was. It's hard to go from 0 to 100. And I think more than anything, he just needs to figure himself out, work on himself. I'm hoping, Spoon, if you're out there, I hope you're doing good, man. Now, like I said earlier, episode 3 is the last one I could find while I was writing the script. So, you know, there are 3 others I could find. There are 8 total, but I could only find 3 more. So we'll get to why that might be later on. Now, for this advantage challenge, the guys are taken to a library and they're told they're going to be talking to girls. Turns out they're talking to little girls. Now, hold on to that. I know that sounds insane. Mystery wants them to tell the story of Goldilocks and the 3 bears to a group of little girls to see if they can even if they have any charisma at all, even with kids. Now, this one could have obviously been terrible, but it's fine. Like, some of them do great and some of them do bad in storytelling, but really I think it's just the kids are sitting there for so long and it's just like, bro, they're bored. They're hearing the same story over and over. And most of them do pretty okay, except for Pradeep and Alvaro. And this is what this challenge, the end of this challenge, when they're picking the winners, is what really just made me hate Pradeep. So for this challenge, the winner's actually picked by the kids. And they get to decide one by one who told the best story. And slowly we start to see who actually did the best, and even you can see who did best from the clips. But Pradeep starts doing something that even pisses off the other contestants. He starts doing little things like, you know, he's trying to convince and manipulate the little kids into picking him. And of course, they're kind of sick of it, the little kids. So when he's like, yeah, me, they go, yeah, him. And so Pradeep wins. I was infuriated at this point with him because he didn't even tell the story. They were just attacking him the whole time, by the way. He wins and he gets one-on-one training with Mystery, who shows him a trick, a conversational trick into talking to girls. And obviously Pradeep is like, I don't care, man. I'm gonna do my own thing. So whatever, Pradeep.
A leg up on the competition. I might use it the next time I go out in the field.
The rest of the gang, as well as Pradeep, are also taught about DHV, demonstrations of higher value. Now, these are things that, of course, don't sound that dissimilar to more current teachings from, alpha male people, stuff like that. Just make yourself valuable when you talk to the person and put it into their head that you're someone worth talking to. I think there's better ways to describe that and kind of go about that. Some of them, it's just like, hey, just lie, whatever. Also, I want to say whoever does lower thirds on the show, like they were definitely just doing whatever, and they told him, hey man, have fun with it. Fred in this episode does actually start talking to women, and he sits down with a group. He starts talking to one specifically, and then Pradeep does something that shook me to my core. Now, Fred, being the nice guy he is, invites Pradeep into the conversation. Pradeep obliges, except he sits in front of Fred and cuts him off from everyone, and then starts to talk shit about him in front of him. What are we doing here, Pradeep? I get it's a competition show, but you're making yourself look like an asshole on TV. I wanted him off the show. Now, Joe W ends up winning this challenge, and unfortunately, we see the next morning, Pradeep sits down to talk with Joe W, and yep, you guessed it, convinces him to save him, and Fred ends up getting sent home. Now, I was so angry, livid at the end of this episode because of Pradeep. But like I said, this is the last episode I could find. So let's get into why some of this might not matter and possibly why season 1 is hard to find. Now, spoiler alert, I will be talking about finalists and winners here. So if you even care, which I'm sure most of you are not gonna care about watching this show, I'll put a timestamp to kind of skip a little bit. The finalists of the show end up being Cosmo and Brady, and Cosmo ends up winning the whole shebang. Now, why is this controversial? Well, it turns out both were not what they were made out to be. From reading the Wikipedia article on this, I found out that people then found out that Alvaro was actually an aspiring actor and had been an aspiring actor for 4 years prior to being on this show. So since 2003, he had been working out of Miami, New York, and LA. And Brady, no surprise, was actually a model working under the LA-based action agency. So obviously finding this out would lead people to speculate that the finalists were not real. It had been a setup from the get-go. Why would the two guys that were both an actor and a model then be the finalists? The two that previously we were talking about looked a little different than the rest of them, right? Alvaro was even in a movie that came out that year called Revenge. And surprisingly, it's a movie about boxing. And what sport does Alvaro say he does? That's right, boxing. Since then, he's done various TV shows, movies. He's done a lot, actually. He's a kind of stacked IMDb. Obviously nothing main, I don't think, but he's done stuff. Brady, hard to find anything about him. I found his Instagram. He did do some photography by the way. And you could see also some of his posts where he kind of did modeling type stuff. I don't know what he's doing. It seems like he lives on a farm.
Hey, so quick little editor's note here. As I was looking stuff for the end of this video, obviously to put about Alvaro, like little snapshots, I found that he had also done a podcast with comedian David So about 4 years ago. Now, I don't know how I didn't find this before because I had obviously looked them up when I was scripting. But it does seem like, the ending might have been actually real. He talks about his problems and struggles before getting onto the show, how he was found for the show, and that his struggles with women were very much real. And now he kind of does the pickup artist thing as well. But from skimming through, it seems like he actually just does more of self-help for men than it actually is, pickup artistry. And yes, I am a little sick right now. Yeah, so maybe the ending is real. From what I can tell from the podcast. I'll link it down below if you guys want to have a look at that. So back to the video.
Now, with all of that being found out, it seems like they tried to hide this season, because the show did get picked up for a second season, because towards the end of season 1, the show's picked up steam and actually got more viewership. Realistically speaking, there is no proven method to meeting a partner. Pickup artist or not, there is no method to the madness of relationships. It just happens. And so some of this could work on some people, but it also doesn't work on most people. That's just what it is. The best thing you can really do, work on your confidence, work on yourself. You know how they say you can't love someone if you can't love yourself? That's kind of true. This is the year 2025, which, correction, that means I was actually 11 when the show came out. I used to be good at math, but I guess not anymore. And yes, it's 2025 and Mystery still does these trainings around the world, actually. And it's pretty crazy that 2 decades later, people are still relying on pickup artists. Like I mentioned earlier, he does have a wife, 3 kids. It seems like he loves his family and they get along great. So maybe he was honest to Tara and they are just doing this to meet their future partners. Now, I will say, obviously, this show, and I mentioned this earlier, is very much a product of its time. You know, you see it later on in Jersey Shore, how club culture was really. Also with the way they dressed, it looks a little insane now. But Chris Angel dressed like this. That's really what it was. Chris Angel aesthetic. Bands like Hinder dressed like this. Daughtry. Like, there were loads of bands that dressed this way. It kind of was the rock star look of the time. So it's not that surprising how they dress. But Before He Had It All is a bit much. Kind of Jamiroquai, though. And obviously, it's a show that was lost to time. And rightfully so. I don't think people need to be learning the teachings of this show. I think a lot of people react to shows of that time and how outrageous they were and how they just wouldn't work in our current social climate. And this is definitely one that would not work. Maybe it could work on streaming, like on streaming platforms like Kick or Twitch or something like that, but I don't see it working on mainstream TV. You know, if you want to see me talk about the rest of these episodes, let me know. If you want to see me talk about King of the Nerds, let me know, because that show was also something crazy. Until next time, it's been your boy Scooch. Peace.